back at the base when it happened. Normal session. Spoony was reorganizing the chest system, a project he'd been planning. For 3 weeks that everyone else had quietly agreed was unnecessary, Spike was reinforcing the eastern wall, which he decided needed reinforcing after. The portal incident, even though the portal was in a completely different server, was at the hill corner, looking at the valley the way he did when he was thinking about something he hadn't named yet. Mugsy wasn't at his corner. Stick noticed first. It was empty, the specific empty that meant Mugsy had been there recently and left without saying anything, which was normal, except the server log showed he hadn't gone anywhere. Still online, just not at the corner. Then the chat opened. One message. No username. 2 words. Look east. Stick looked east. The mind was at the edge of the eastern biome, the same flat terrain where they'd seen it 3 sessions ago. Stayed distant, the yellow eyes and the dark scribble silhouette against the warm voxel sky, and it was beside it on the ground, placed carefully on a flat stone, a key, not a normal key, older looking, darker, with a texture that didn't match the voxel world around it, like something that had come from somewhere else. Spoony had abandoned the chest reorganization immediately. He was already moving toward the eastern edge, clipboard raised, the element of curiosity stronger than any caution. Spike said, "Don't." Spoony kept moving. By the time the squad reached the eastern edge, the mind was gone. The eyes had simply stopped being visible. No retreat, no departure, just absence where there had been presence. Key was still on the flat stone. Spoony said, "It opens things." Spike said, "We don't know that." Spoony said, "It's a key." Mugsy walked to the flat stone. He picked up the key, looked at it for a long moment, longer than Mugsy looked at anything, and then he put it in his inventory without saying a word. Stick said, "Mugsy." Mugsy said, "What?" Stick said, "That's a key that could open anything on the server." Mugsy said, "I know." Stick said, "Any chest." "Anyone's chest." Mugsy said, "I know." Spike said, "Are you going to use it?" Mugsy was quiet for a moment. He looked at the flat stone where the key had been. At the squad's base on the hill, the labeled chests, the organized storage 3 months of carefully separated materials. Mugsy said, "No." Nobody said anything after that. It had shifted not between them and Mugsy. Exactly, more like between each of them and themselves. Because they'd all had the same thought in the 3 seconds of silence before Mugsy answered. They'd all looked at the base. They'd all known what was in those chests. They'd all wondered if had done anything wrong, but now they knew what they could do. Lumi was at the base when they got back. Sitting on the hill corner, Mugsy's corner, empty because Mugsy had gone somewhere alone. After the key conversation and hadn't come back yet, she sat beside Stick. A key. Stick said, "Mind opens any chest on the server." Mugsy took it. He said he won't use it. "Can I tell you something? Nobody did anything wrong," Stick said, before she could ask. Lumi looked at him. The glow in her chest was careful. "No," she said. "Nobody did, but something changed." "Yes." She was quiet for a moment, the glow steady. There's a concept called temptation and trust. It doesn't only respond to what people do, it responds to what they could do. You know someone has the power to hurt you, and they haven't used it. There are 2 responses available. You trust them more because they chose not to, or you become more vigilant because now you know the capability exists. Both responses happen at the same time. That's not a malfunction. That's the brain being honest about what's true. Stick thought about the 3 seconds of silence, about everyone looking at the base. "We all thought about it," he said. "Yes," Lumi said. "Even Mugsy, especially Mugsy," Lumi said. "He was the one who had to decide. You just had to wonder, to choose." Stick thought about Mugsy picking up the key. The long look, the inventory. He chose not to use it. Stick said, "He chose not to use it yet," Lumi said. "Not cruelly, carefully." That's what the key means now. Every session Mugsy will have made that choice again, and every session the squad will know he made it. That's what trust actually is, not one decision. Same decision made again, every time the option is still available. Stick looked at the base, at the labeled chests. Should we be worried? Lumi's glow was warm, honest. "It's not the right question," she said. "The right question is, do you trust Mugsy?" Stick thought about 20 episodes. About the corner, "I don't know, and there's a server you should see and took you long enough and everything." Mugsy had never said and always meant yes. Stick said, "Then you have your answer," Lumi said. "Key doesn't change Mugsy. It just shows you what trusting Mugsy actually means. That you trust him with the power to make a choice, not just with the absence of it." That night, Mugsy came back to the base. He went to his corner. He stood there for a long time looking at the valley. The key was still in his inventory. He hadn't used it. What would you do with a key like that?